Okay, welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled board meeting of the South Tahoe PUD. Could you please stand and join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any comments from the audience on non-agenda items? Doesn't look like we do. Do we have any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? I'm not hearing any of that, so I guess we can get a motion.
Either we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Not on the agenda. What is it? 70 is not.
Okay, that passes unanimous, thanks.
There's something to do with 7E.
Yeah, that, we should have got an email on 7E.
I did.
I don't see any paperwork on it right here, though.
And here's the binder.
Oh, it's in the binder? Okay. Okay. We have a presentation. Anybody here from IT to accept?
Oh, she was.
Scared her off, that was it. Okay. Let's get to that one later.
Oh. Here she is.
Oh, you are here.
I do, but it's just.
Okay. I think we'll still move on to 7A if that's all right.
Can I just ask a question on one of the items on the consent calendar?
Sure.
I voted for it, but it's the one where we're paying TRPA for the mitigation. Have we ever gotten anything from TRPA? I mean, at one point we were going to ask for an audit to find out what they did to the money, or it's 22 years. Is this going to go on forever?
Since it was an item from the 1996 deal, as was the free connections for recreation projects for the county and the city, and any of the JPIAs. At this point, without a redo of that process, there's nothing formally that would sort of terminate that that obligation. So we'd have to initiate some sort of a study, or otherwise, in my mind, it probably just goes on
In perpetuity.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It's a lot of money we've been giving them over the years. We don't know what they did with it.
Well,
And they probably don't even have to tell us what they do with it.
Salaries.
I mean, we could just send an informal letter over there saying, hey, we since we've spent, paid you all this money over the years, it'd be nice to have some idea of what you spent it on. If you remember way back, years ago with the El Dorado County Water Agency, when they were giving us a set amount every year, for 10 years and stuff. They would ask, oh, what are you guys doing with the money this year? And we'd send them literally an email saying, oh, it's for laboratory monitoring, it's for this study or that. And we would actually make a response saying, here, these activities total the amount of money you gave us. It could be a kind of informal process like that if you wish.
Yeah, you could. What you might do is just send them something that says, hey, one of our board members or a couple of them were just curious about this item. It was on consent, but we're curious what's going on because we're trying to watch our budget. Is this in perpetuity? Where's it go? What's it do? Who are we helping?
And they still justify the requirement.
Yes.
Now it's 5% on sewer connections, right?
But it was still a transportation mitigation. It started off as 5% on the new sewer connections, but it was called a transportation mitigation.
Okay.
just like the other, just like the connection fee waivers were a recreation mitigation that we were supporting the additional recreation in the basin, and that was a mitigation for our further development.
Right.
Residential and commercial, right? Residential and commercial.
That's a good point, Jim. Thanks. Okay, I have a presentation. Is anybody here from IT?
But don't
Bryn's here, she
She already had her moment. The spotlight is at him.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, you guys, good job. And I am pleased to present the Information Technology Department with the Municipal Information System Association of California Excellence in Information Technology Practices Award for 2017. This award is the highest form of recognition from PSAT. I'm easily distracted. Oh, look at the world. And it's a statement that represents the district met or exceeded PSAT standards in the areas of budget, strategic planning, purchasing, operations and staffing, customer satisfaction, internet, project management, professional development and training, disaster preparation, recovery, policy, procedures, and security. It is noteworthy to mention that the district has received this award for 4 consecutive years. Congratulations to the Information Technology Department. I don't know if they're aware of what goes on right before each board meeting with this technology, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, now we can move on to 7A. Who's, Debbie's doing this one. Okay.
Signed from the consultant, so she has the consultant has agreed and signed the last page, so. Not on the copies you have, but Melanie has one. So, as you're aware, we're replacing the finance ERP system with Tyler New World coming from SunGard IFAS. And Tim Rutherford has helped us tremendously over the years. He is a former SunGard employee, and he actually left when the version that we are on was the latest and greatest. He's very, very familiar with the version that we're on. There's a lot of technical table connectings, so for conversion purposes, to have him on board, he can accomplish tasks in no time at all. He's very familiar with it. So, and it would take us days to do what he does, probably in hours. So the attached agreement is just a formality, because we do expect him to go over the board approval limit. Over the course of the project, we expect to go live at the beginning of April, and so we're really pushing hard, working hard to get that done. So this services agreement and the board proposal allows for us to go up to $40,000 in assistance with Tim Rutherford.
So he just bridges the gap between the old software and the new
He
software?
does. So he knows all the background tables and how they link and what tables he needs to grab to populate the new software fields. So he's working closely with Tyler New World employees to get these conversion documents created so that we can more easily bring data into the new financial system.
So what I think I hear you saying is he's like an interpreter between
Yes. He knows that language.
Sounds like a good one to me.
And I see his address is in Texas. Does he ever come here, or is it mostly
We do,
communications over?
yeah, so we do have Tyler employees on site about once a month for a week, and their next visit in January is actually what they're calling the validation configuration. So they're making sure everything works. So we're going to bring him on site so that he can be here for on-the-fly corrections and more dedicated. We'll have dedicated Tyler employees here that he can connect with to make sure that we are where we need to be to proceed, because we're training district employees in February, so we need to make sure we have our ducks in a row.
Anybody else have anything? Have a motion on that.
I'll move that we approve the contract with Tim Rufford III to provide temporary assistance with the ERP system replacement in an amount not to exceed $40,000.
I will second that motion.
Okay, that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Melanie, I see your name's next to this. Are you going to kick this one off?
I'll kick this one off. It is time to elect a new board president and new board vice president. Effective January 4th is our next board meeting.
Well, it's hard to do this without violating the Brown Act, so I just want to ask Randy a question. First, I'd like to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and that I've been very impressed with the crisp meetings you've run, and especially what you've put on consent calendar, and you've balanced it well. I haven't found any real disagreements with those things. So I'd like to ask if you're interested, if it's not, it's not wearing you out or anything like that, if you're interested in doing it again.
Tremendous burden.
Well, we have to help you with the big words.
Right, I know. No, I thank you for your compliments, and I'm fine if you guys want me. I'm fine if you guys want to make a change.
Don't get a big head, because you're not emperor of the world.
Yeah, no, not in this lowly elected position.
So because this, like I said, it's an awkward time. So if anyone else would like to do it, please step forward, because he probably wouldn't mind that either. So then my motion is that Randy Volker-Gustang be our board president.
I would second that.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. We'll see if I win.
I'm voting. It's like that.
I should have voted no.
Yeah, the infinity thing, like in Survivor. I watched that. I couldn't believe that show. It's crazy.
Okay.
So before we go on to the next one, we'd like to give a little token for
My
appreciation.
annual.
The staff feels the same way. The board members has expressed that you've done a great job creating an atmosphere of welcome for guests, even though we don't have a lot of guests, but it's still, you still welcome when they do come. You express your opinion, you run an efficient meeting. We don't belabor topics when we don't have to, so we really appreciate your efforts as board president. Then we get to see you every twice as much as the rest of the board.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
So here's a little token of our
Thank you,
appreciation.
Richard. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Randy.
All right, thanks. Which I guess brings us to the next item. I'm going to kind of start this the way Dwayne started the last one. How do you feel about being vice president? I mean, or does anybody?
We love our choice.
I was just going to say the same thing you said. I'm going to concur with you. I'm happy to do it if no one else wants to do it. Okay.
Well, I'll propose that we elect Kelly as the board vice president.
All the things we said for Randy are true. When you ran the meetings, you hadn't had much practice. You stepped right in and popped it just fine. And the only thing I was worried about is you taking over what I was doing on those Wednesdays a month. If I can get free to help you out with that again, I'll do it.
It's okay. It's good to share that.
Well, and yeah, and that's coming up again, the committee
Yeah.
assignments. So think about if you guys want to make any changes or anything. It's not on this agenda, so I won't go any further, but that is coming up.
Jim carried it for many years.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thanks. Thank you, Kelly. Payment of claims.
I move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,683,479.36.
Second?
There we go. And that passes 5-0. We have an item, I think everybody got the email on this, item 7E. And Chris, do you want to explain what's going on with this?
Because the one you're looking at. Well, first of all, congratulations to you two.
Or condolences,
Yeah.
right?
Nah. We're here today to talk about another emergency and ask for direction from the board on options that staff has come up with. Friday, December 15th, which was last Friday, I received a call about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I actually received it from Buck, the acting supervisor. And I was informed that we lost a pump, a 90-horse pump at Tahoe sewer station. Now, Tahoe sewer is basically 3 pumps in the wet well, they're submersible. One 100-horse and 2 90-horse pumps. We lost a 90-horse pump. So after talking on the phone for a few minutes, I went out there and met with Buck and some other people there from ops, the electricians. And when we got to looking at it, the pump in the wet well has wires attached to it, came out of the wet well through a conduit, goes into the building, and goes into an electrical panel where all the pumps meet, and it's one of the main panels in there. Well, we noticed water in the panel. So at first glance, we assumed that water had gotten into the motor through the pump. There's probably a seal in there. Got water in there. It had followed through the electrical line and came out in the panel. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't squirting water or dripping, but it was wet. So right away, my stress level, and I think their stress level, went from about 0 to 100. And the reason why I say that is Tahoe sewer station has 31 other stations that pump to it before it's pumped to the plant. So that's one of our main stations, and I mean, it was bad. So because this is such a critical station, and we were worried about the upcoming Christmas holiday and New Year's holiday, one of the things that we talked about was we wanted to get this pump out of there and get it sit down because we do not have an extra one on the shelf. So Buck had called Reed Electric down in Reno. The guy was very nice, says, hey, pull the pump, bring it down this afternoon. We'll do everything we can to get you this pump back by New Year's Eve if possible. So we pulled the pump. Uh-oh, I didn't. We pulled the pump, we ran it down there, and looking at it, we were waiting for quotes, which we didn't have any quotes up until about a half hour ago. So he sent us a quote, and it's basically $26,000 to build the one that we have. So at the station for New Year's, we are concerned about it. We only have the 2 pumps with 31 stations coming into it. But we also have a Godwin pump that is stored in the garage there for extra hookup where we could hook up with a bypass and help pump. The only problem I see with the Godwin, and I think Buck will agree with me, when you hook up a Godwin pump and it starts pumping, it'll do 1,100 to 1,300 gallons per minute on its own. That's with no head pressure. But at this station, we have the 100 horse and the 90 horse left. So those are going to produce roughly around 4,000, a little bit more gallons per minute. So when you fire up this Godwin, I don't know that you're going to get 1,100 to 1,300 gallons a minute because you're pushing against two other pumps with a higher output as far as gallons per minute. But at this point, we think we're going to be okay. I will be in town. Buck and some other people have already said they would be in town. So we believe that we'll be okay only because of the fact we're not going through a winter like we had last year. Everything seems dry. We think that we'll be okay with the amount of people that are coming up. And basically, we're going to have to be at this point and just see what happens.
Could those two pumps, the 90 and the 100 that you have now, could they handle a flow like you did last year?
No, I don't think the whole thing.
So all three, like last winter, all three of those pumps were going full bore.
During the big I&I.
Yeah, during the
Without
big I&I.
without the
Yeah.
I&I, the two
Yeah.
pumps can handle.
Right.
How much is a new pump?
We have a quote from Reed Electric, and a new pump, the same as what we have, which is a flight pump, is $63,000.
Opposed to 26 for the rebuild.
Yes.
I have a just technical question. If we're bypassing, we've got a lot, we have a sort of a donkey pump pumping it around, hitting it up the stream, bringing it down around, right?
No,
On the station?
inside of the station there where the Godwin's kept in the building,
Uh-huh.
they have some piping that's comes up to the Godwin that we could hook right there.
I see. Years ago, it was around this time of year, I ended up having to help them stop a leak, and we ran a pipe around, and there was a lot of equipment out exposed to the public. So I was just thinking about that as far as, because we have that New Year's deal with all the meth fest and going on.
Snow globe, all that. That was a lot of our concern.
So not to digress, what about having a spare pump? Rebuilding the one you have and getting another one.
I'm
so you
almost
have
to that
enough-
point.
Oh, you were going there.
Yes, sir. I wanted to make sure that we gave you a lot of the details. I realize this is an emergency, but we're also talking a lot of money. So what I did was we looked up a maintenance connection on the history of all these pumps, all three of the pumps. Number 2 appears to be a problem pump. It was installed in 2004 along with the other 90 horse pump. But since then, it's been rebuilt. We had one situation where it went to ground, had to send it in. It was $15,000 for that. It was rebuilt in 2014, and that was around, I think that was about $25,000. So it's pretty close to what the quote they gave us now in 2017.
But Chris, that we think that was the pump, not the motor? Or was that, did you know if that was both?
It said both. It appeared to be both.
We're talking about both, right? Or just motor?
Right now, it appears from the quote, it's basically the motor, and then they're going to go through everything.
But with this rebuild, you will get new bearings,
Yes.
new
Okay.
wear rings and stuff on the pump and that sort of nature. So they have to tear that all down anyways, and they'll check clearances and stuff to that.
So what we've done is we've come up with 2 options, and we would like direction from the board, if you would. Option 1 is rebuild the pump, put it back into service, $26,000, $27,000, we're done. Option 2 is rebuild pump number 2, get it back in service, and talking with the gentleman a few minutes before the board meeting here, if we approve this now, he'll have it back to us in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But also, we'd like to go with the quote Reed Electric gave us on a new pump, which is $63,016.55. And that arrives in about 14 to 16 weeks. If we purchase a new pump, it'll give us an extra one for the station, which we are lagging now. If it was me, I would put the rebuilt pump in a couple weeks when we get it back so we have 3 pumps going. But with the history of pump number 2, Staff believes it would be a good option if we purchased a new pump, put the rebuilt pump in 2 weeks until the new pump comes in 14 to 16 weeks. Then I would pull out pump 2, put the new one in its place, and then take that rebuilt pump and use it as a spare. So if we ever lost pumps, we'd have a spare. And I believe having an extra pump on the shelf will help prevent future problems. Maybe not all of them, but we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now where we might be hanging on by a thread over to Christmas and New Year's.
90 and 100 interchangeable as far as where they
On
go?
the rails,
I believe they
I
are.
think they are.
And is this only be a backup for this one station, or could it be possibly used at another pump station somewhere else?
That's
in
what
the
I was
system?
gonna ask, yeah.
You're the technical guy.
Okay, so we've been talking, as you guys know, we're doing the Big Five assessments, and I talked with Mr. Teal, and we were going to talk to the folks doing that assessment and some of our planning to see if, logistically, if these pumps would work theoretically at Tahoe Keys, Upper Truckee Sewer, and El Tahoe. And if we can get that dynamic to work through the pump curves and the powers needed to where we're pumping the water, then potentially we could have one extra pump that would facilitate the 3 different stations. And then on the maintenance side too, we could also go to more of a routine maintenance schedule of being able to pull a pump and say, hey, at 2 years, pull it in-house, we can rebuild it, we can go through, do bearings, wear rings, clean it, and be able to drop the other pump in and start a cycle of that instead of being as reactive. When you don't have a backup, you're kind of a run to fail.
Are you saying you don't know if that's feasible till we get this Big Five assessment?
Yeah, there would be more to it because we don't know like the elevation or the amount of head that we have to push from each station. I don't know that offhand.
But that's some ways down the road, right? This Big Five assessment?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
So go.
if you have 21 other stations
Yeah, but I
feeding to
mean,
that one
the
station, that's
results.
kind of the linchpin of the whole thing,
So
right?
do you wanna buy a new one? and-
31? Sorry, I missed it
Well,
like
that's
that.
where I'm going.
So you kind of have to have an extra pump there.
I believe so. And
All the other
I-
one, that's
I
the
think
hub of the
another-
wheel, essentially.
One more question.
We have survived without that extra pump, but we haven't seen that winter that we had last year and those flows that we saw. So we've been surviving off of the having 2 pumps operating and 1 potentially being out. But after seeing what happened last year, this idea of adding this extra pump makes a heck of a lot of sense. And we do believe that we will, it may not be running efficiently because this is, so a 90 horsepower pump running at Tahoe Keys or at Upper Truckee may not be the efficient pump to run there, but it doesn't mean that we can't design those stations so that we can use that in the event that we have a need, that backup pump could be inserted in there while we pull another one, get it worked on, and then put it back in so that we're not running short.
So are you saying efficiency-wise, too big, too small?
Probably too big.
Okay.
But we'll
But not too small.
as Buck said, we'll see as we go through the design how all that's going to come together. But it's definitely one of the thoughts that has come forward.
The variable.
We have talked with engineering quite a bit and asked them to keep that in mind when we're designing or redoing these Big Five stations. I would like to see where someday we could have one pump that does 2 or 3 stations. So we're not having to buy individual pumps for individual stations.
And one thing that it may result in is us coming back to you and asking for a sole brand on the pumps for those pump stations as we go, when we do the building of those stations, because these pumps in particular, they're the railings that they pump sets on and gets lowered down into the stations, those are pretty much proprietary by manufacturer. So these are flight pumps, and that means it's a flight rail, and we would need to put that same system in at these other stations to be able to use that.
I have another question. Would it be possible to find another used pump? Because let's say we buy the used one or have ours rebuilt and put it in. So then we're just trying to decide between a new one or none, or would there be a chance of finding a used rebuilt pump that we could use as our universal pump? We really don't know, do we? We just don't know.
No, I don't know. It's definitely a possibility.
Might save $40,000.
Yeah, we've never explored that avenue as of yet. If it came from a regular electric shop, it might not be as bad, but I'd be a little bit afraid just to buy it off of eBay or
Oh,
something.
yeah. what I'm thinking is these companies probably end up with, people give them a used pump and they sell them a new one, and then they've got one they rebuild and it's ready to sell. I mean, I would imagine. So I was just curious. It might save $40,000 or.
I don't know if we've ever checked into used or rebuilt pumps like that I know of.
It might
But
be
it's
worth
definitely
looking
an option.
I think we can look into it,
Yes.
again, with the rebuild cost being, $26,000.
$26,000, right.
Almost half the cost of a new pump. Buying one used, my inclination would be to rebuild it before bringing it in and installing it, in which case we may well be looking at same
End up
price.
spending the same amount of money.
Because we're
Yeah.
gonna rebuild it anyway.
And I don't know what kind of warranty that would also come with either.
Right, it might not give us the long-term dependability. The issue I see is from a variety of problems, railing, head pressure, all those things. That, we might want to really take a look at how we solve this problem. But it seems like we need to immediately solve the problem in the short term.
So let me get into a theoretical one. Let's say that we were a year ago in the middle of all this I&I, and this pump went out. Do you think you could have got the Godwin in there and made it work, or do you think it would have been a disaster?
My first thought, after what we went through and seeing what the Godwin can pump, and I'm not, like I said, comfortable with the 11 to 1,300 gallons per minute, I say we would have been in trouble. Don't you think?
Yeah, I don't think I probably would be out there trying to clean up stuff instead of here talking.
We had that happen over at Upper Truckee Sewer, where we had all three pumps going and we were not keeping up, and we had the camels in there sucking out the wet well and making trips.
That's the only way you'd be running the camels until it subsided, the flow subsided.
And also, if that was during a storm event, we might need the camels elsewhere. And that particular station, as you guys have reported it to us, has a high probability if it leaked, if we had a spill, be a huge expense. A couple $100,000 maybe.
Oh,
Lahontan or something like that.
because you're right on the meadow there.
You're right on the meadow, and you're kind of a straight shot over to the lake. 100 yards, 200.
With the resources we had deployed at various times during last year's event, we were pretty close to being at capacity with all of our resources, both from a manpower and equipment standpoint. And Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, if we had one more thing out there going wrong that would have required essentially 24-hour operations, more than likely we would have been in a spill situation.
I agree.
How old were those pumps?
The 290 horse were installed in 2004.
Oh, you said that, I'm sorry.
The 100 horse was installed in 1997.
Pretty old.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very simple.
And all of these pumps seem to have about the same hours on them, and correct me if I'm wrong here. This station receives so much sewage to it that when you put a lead pump on, it never shuts off during the day. So these guys are going at the end of the day and rotating the lead pump just so the one doesn't work 24/7 nonstop. So it does constitute a lot of hours on all three pumps by having to switch them around like that too.
We had a long discussion at the operations committee earlier this week, and went through some of the alternatives. We did not have all the facts at that point, but
I did not.
It certainly appears that we're in a position where we really don't have a choice. We can't afford to spill, and we know we got to go ahead. And I like the idea of repairing the existing one, and we'll have that back in 2 weeks, and then in 4 months we could get another one. And I mean, the fact that something like this isn't on the shelf, that bothers me too. I mean, we've had several pumps now recently that we have to wait long periods, 6,
That's
8
what I'm
months.
seeing.
And I'm just wondering, are there any other places out there in the system where if we had a pump failure, would we be in trouble? And should we be looking at maybe getting some backups now that we don't have?
That would be something that it's a possibility, yes. What I've asked from pump runs is I would like them all to sit down and take each station. And you've got a lot of knowledge on the crew over there. You've got Greg James, who's been here 49 years. other people like that. So what I wanted to do was have a spreadsheet made up of each station and tell me what their thoughts are about them. You know, when were these pumps put in? Is this a problem pump? What do we need to do to each station to kind of give us a basis to go off of? So I'll know that, hey, you know, Jim, you're correct. We have 2 other stations out here where we have no backup and it's a critical station. So we are working on it. And at this point, we're covering Luther Pass. If you do approve option 2 today, we'll be covered a little bit better at Tahoe. So we are working on it. We probably will be here in the future talking about some of these other stations. But we want to get an idea, or I'd like to get an idea first, of what we're looking at each station, what their thoughts are from the guys that work it every day for 40.
Kind of getting to start with this Big 5 project.
Yes.
Which,
Yes.
critical.
So as a follow-up on that, Buck, you correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding some of our stations, those pumps are no longer manufactured, and so getting another pump to put on a shelf is not really an option.
Yeah, we do have stations out there, the pumps are circa 1965. And they've been rebuilt. These guys have done great work with them. But you hit the point of diminishing returns. There's nothing more we can do with those. And those are what I'm looking for our crew to identify and make sure that that's presented to our management crew so that we don't have surprises. And we can look at that 10-year plan and the finance side, and we can start to kind of be more planning and then less reactive.
Aren't these already on our risk assessment plan?
They are. This is part of that Big 5 assessment. Is those big
Okay.
stations. There's also, we're also talking about small stations outside of that grouping that is not part of the CIP program that we're putting together at this point. This, I think, historically, this has been part of the capital program for the pumps department. Individual pumps at a station, whether that was a rebuild or replacement, was part of the pumps crew rather than part of the engineering larger capital project.
Right. So this
but
is
it doesn't mean we can't participate in this, as particularly as our asset management program continues to evolve and grow. We'll use our asset management tools and staff as a resource for the pumps crew to help put that spreadsheet together, put these evaluations and analysis together.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, because it sounds to me like up till now this has been considered mainly a maintenance issue. You know, the pumps, you know, it goes out, you buy a new one, you fix it, whatever you need to do. Now we're talking about actually putting it into our asset management plan,
Yeah.
which is a good idea.
Another reason why we
Right,
wanted to start
right.
this spreadsheet, so we could get that into maintenance connection,
Right.
and we can add and subtract from whatever each station and have record of it.
In this instance, I'm sure positive I want to go along with your recommendation, and I the sooner the better for the Big 5 analysis. Also wanted to tell you that I appreciate something you've been doing, and that's that when you have an issue, you bring one or more of your experts with you, because we get to see them face to face, and we get a better feel for what they're thinking about the district and the other side of the issues. So we appreciate that. We're glad to have you here, Bud.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And you guys all know that I'm new to the position. I've been here a long time, so I have a good idea. But when you have questions to ask, I want to make sure that you get the correct answer or detailed answer that I may not be able to give you.
Right. It's a little scary, all the emergencies that come, but system's getting older,
Yes.
and so am I, and things are happening. So, but that worries me that our pumps, we could just easily have 4 or 5 of them go out just by luck of the draw. And so we need to look at whether it makes sense to redo with a better group of pumps. Somehow the old ones seem to be better built than the new ones, though.
I believe they are, but I refer it to like a motor in a car or a snowmobile, like we were talking about earlier. You can only rebuild it so many times before your base rebuild
Yeah.
is no longer good.
Yeah, and
No longer
also
functional.
the integrity of the metal starts to go and those kind of things.
Yes, and I believe we're running into some of that now, and I believe it's going to get worse as the years go on and the more hours are put on the pumps.
And the emergencies are costly.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I throw something in here? I just wanted to throw something in real quick along the lines of the staff that you see before you today. As you are probably aware that Bill Torney, our pump station supervisor, is out on an extended leave at this point because of a death in his family. And one of the things I think Chris is doing a fantastic job of managing the pumps crew. And one of the things that he's doing is he's taking the individuals who are interested in the future taking on that pumps crew supervisory role, and he's rotating them through basically a month at a time, each one of those individuals in an acting role with the pumps crew, leading the pumps crew, so that they're getting a bit of a chance to get experience being out there on the sharp end and being that responsible person. It allows them to evaluate us and the position. It also gives us a chance to further evaluate them as well. And so that's one of the reasons you may see different pumps crew members in that acting role as the pumps crew supervisor over time. And Buck everything seems to fall apart when Buck is in charge of the pumps crew. So
I'm that guy.
And I did a lot of, supervising, and I found sometimes my hardest worker, I would reward them with being a manager, and they hated it. They loved working, not managing. And so it's a smart thing to find out whose temperament fits, because you can have all the degrees in the world, certificates, but you might be better at working than you are at, not that supervisors don't work, but.
Well,
we know you're in there sleeping.
Yeah, I wish. I really appreciate what Shannon says, but I can't take all the credit from Shannon.
Yes, you can.
Shannon and I have built a real good relationship with you, along with Richard, and a lot of these he's letting us do it. He has a lot of great ideas, a lot of suggestions that help us improve morale and everything here in the district. And I got to say, he's done it in the last few years. So I can't take all the credit.
No. Yes, you can. You're doing all the work.
Okay, so we actually have a couple things we have to do here. So let's get the first one out of the way. We have to declare this the emergency. Does anybody want to dive into this paragraph and make that motion?
If the requested board action?
Yeah.
If you'd like, I'll give it a shot for you.
Go ahead, give it a shot, and then we can do a so moved. So we'll start out on the first part of it is about the emergency.
Authorize the district, that part? The very beginning,
Mhm.
yes. Authorize the district to, 1, determine an emergency exists pursuant to Section 1102 of the Public Contract Code. Number 2, determine substantial evidence has been presented to authorize an exception be made pursuant to Section 22050 of the Public Contract Code that this emergency will not permit a delay resulting from a competitive solicitation for bids, and that this action is necessary to respond to the emergency. Number 3, adopt resolution number 3075, delegating authority to the general manager and assistant general manager / engineer to order any action necessary to respond to this emergency. Number 4, determine this project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to the Public Resource Code sections 21080, B, 2, and 4, and authorize filing a notice of exemption, and 5, approve expenditures necessary to start emergency repairs up to $100,000.
Okay, I'll do a so moved on that. I'm going to note that the $100,000 is about the amount of the rebuild plus the new pump, right?
Sure.
So that's
Yes.
what we're improving in concept.
Yes. Now, the $63,000 did not show tax on it, but if this is so approved, I'd be willing to come back next board meeting and give you exact prices and
Sure,
finalize
sure.
everything if you'd like, and let you know what's going on.
We're fine with the 100,000. Should we make it 100?
20 or something.
Should we make it a little more?
Yeah. If they don't use it.
It probably wouldn't hurt.
Are you going to ask either now or which option you want to pursue? Do you want to add that to the motion?
Yes.
Because or do you want to come back?
Well, that's why I clarified the amount of the 100,000. Is that included the rebuild plus the new?
I would like to see option 2 approved as district staff, and then go ahead and get the ball rolling on the rebuilt pump, get the new one coming, and then I guess next board meeting we would come back and ask to end the emergency.
But well, I don't know that in the next board meeting you're going to be able to end the emergency. So I think what you would be requesting is approval to have the pump rebuilt, pump number 2 rebuilt, and purchase a new a 90 horsepower flight pump to hold backup for future.
Well, how about this, Gary? How about if we just what he read, so moved, vote on that, and he'll have another vote on
the options.
On the options.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So right now we're voting on the first paragraph.
And I'll second Gary's motion.
Okay. Right. Right.
Not that they don't trust you.
Heard that.
Okay, that passes unanimous again. Now, this next motion is, why don't you go ahead and give us some, how you'd like this.
Okay. Staff is requesting or asking the board to approve the rebuild of the existing pump number 2 that we have, and also authorize staff to purchase a new 90 horse pump in the amount of $63,016.55, not including tax. I'm sorry? $63,016.55.
Can we actually broaden that? I don't know that we have looked at buying a 100 horsepower pump. Is that maybe a better option for us to do the larger pump? I'm just not sure that we've looked at that.
We have not. We had the 100 horse pump in there. It seems to do good with the 290s. And then we're also going through this electrical thing that we're doing, assessing on each pump station.
I guess what I'm asking is, can we leave that open, and we'll get together and make a decision about whether that 100 horsepower...
Because it's a good point. If the 100 horsepower goes down, would the 90 be a good substitute?
Well,
maybe not.
Right. The 100 may be better for the 90, and yes.
Right. And would 100 be a good backup for a 90 if we went that way?
We're in the weeds there. Just give them a not to exceed or something like that.
The 100 horsepower was installed in '97 and was used in conjunction with the old pumps that were in the dry well, the 2 centrifugals. When those, in 2004, when the 2 centrifugals in the dry well were decommissioned, that was when the 2 90 horses were added into the dry well. So I don't know what the dynamic was there as far as why 90s were chosen over 100. So it'd probably be something to investigate before we jump in.
I didn't want to
I was going to say, I think Dwayne has a good point. I don't think the board needs to get that much in the weeds. We just want to make the resolution the proper way so that you guys can have some flexibility.
Yeah, I'd limit it just to the, in concept, the rebuild of the current one plus purchase a new one. And the motion you just passed gives Richard and Shannon flexibility to take any action underneath that.
Okay, so I will move that we authorize the rebuilding of the one pump and authorize the purchase of a new pump.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So do we need to have more money authorized? We okay? Okay. Okay. He's always thinking, see what I mean?
Okay, that passed unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Okay, it looks like we are on item 8, standing and ad hoc committee reports. We did have an interesting. Dwayne, did you want to give a report on our city ad hoc committee meeting?
I could. We've continued. I think we had a conference call that included Lucan's brother's attorney, I believe it was, or consultant, We had Jenny Lukens there, Wendy David there, Nancy.
No. No.
Nancy
But
and
was not there, is
Brooke
what I was going to
sick,
say. So we had plenty of, the city was represented, we were represented.
Tahoe Keys also.
Tahoe Keys was represented, Lukens. And the idea was to come up with a strategy to be able to get Lahontan to start taking action on these PCEs. And the real concern is that Lahontan seems to have pressure from above not to get involved with underground water. They seem to be being forced into staying with just surface water, which is a problem for us because ours is an underground mainly issue. And they've shown a proclivity towards punishing people who embarrass them on this issue. And it could be because it's such a huge issue and it's all over our community, or we're not sure why, but we've paid the price in the past for going alone. The city was kind of, as I said last week, looking to pull the snake out of the hole with somebody else's hand. And we've made it clear that we don't want to be necessarily just the lead. We don't want to take on that role. On the other hand, we all have to get this thing taken care of. I thought Lukens has a real grasp of the issue from their standpoint. I was very impressed with that. So we only had an hour there because they had a meeting on I forget the name of it afterwards. But we're all on the same page. And what was the final result, Richard, that we were going to... Was the city going to...
Nancy was going to call Patty Koimogen over at Lahontan and ask for Lahontan to come to a future city council meeting and make a presentation and explain what they were doing and what the schedule was for us, addressing the problem, the PCE contamination in the South Hawaii area.
And my recollection is we were going to be there and sort of support that action. We're not going to exactly embarrass them, but we're going to put them on a mild spotlight that says, hey, we're concerned, the community is concerned, the council's concerned, and see if they've got any suggestions as to how we move forward. And also the Lahontan staff seems to be divided on it. It could be because they've got new people coming in, but this guy from, I think he's from Sacramento, this attorney, very smart guy, knows the groundwork over there and says that there is a tremendous amount of pressure from the very top not to get involved in that issue.
But the staff, the message we got was that the staff is wanting to get after the PRP and make them do things, and the senior staff and board members are reluctant to. There's been a suit filed by the PRP against them.
And Randy and I were very supportive, and we did, and Richard, we let them know that we are definitely interested in the issue for a variety of reasons. We want to move forward, but we're not going to do it alone. We're not going to run out on the battlefield with our shiny sword and turn around and our troops have run the other way. We want to have a group, and we want to do it in such a way that we don't embarrass them, but we put the pressure on them.
I think we, as we talked recently at, I forget it was the last board meeting or the one before, the ball is clearly in Lahontan's court right now, because there was a revised work plan that came out. They asked for comments. The three water purveyors provided very detailed comments, and Lahontan's got to decide how it's going to respond now to that revised work plan, because they're essentially saying it's not acceptable. But they haven't taken any action on that. Now it's been probably 2.5, 3 months they've been sitting on it and haven't given direction back to the RPs.
Well, that was kind of the purpose of the meeting, is to see if we could somehow push that process along. And the city, having the city take the lead on it is really, I think, a very good idea, because while I wouldn't really call them a neutral they are kind of neutral, except for the fact that their constituents are all affected by their constituents are in the Lukens and the Keys and in our district. So I think they could be a interested but more neutral central player in this, I think.
This isn't the only issue they're having a problem with. They've got several others. One is the aquatic invasive species problem in the Keys, and some others that they're just not getting things done over there. And I don't know if it's a management issue.
Well, the message we got from the staff, when we'll talk some more about that stakeholders advisory group, which was the meeting that was going to start at 9 o'clock next door that you referenced, Dwayne, is that the Lawton staff has said they've prepared their response already to the work plan with incorporating comments from the water agencies, and it's to the senior executives and the board over at Lawton to make a decision. That the staff has made their recommendation, and so it's all the delay is all coming from the top of the organization. So that's why we, and knowing that's why we thought it was so crucial that Nancy invite and ask that Patty Coymagen, who's the executive officer over there, come and present and talk to the city council. Not the staff. From the staff, we made a recommendation. Now we're waiting for the senior executives to decide. That's all they're going to say.
They are a bureaucracy, so they think action is studying. They think that's
writing a letter.
Yeah, it's process, not results. Right?
Correct.
So take care about it.
Once they write the letter, it's like.
Yeah, we wrote a good letter.
But I thanks, Dwayne. I think that was a pretty good sum of the meeting. So we'll just have to see. We got the holidays and a bunch of other stuff going on. But if the city can get a response out of Lawton and get them up into one of their meetings and kind of just ask for an update, maybe we'll get something out of them. We'll see.
Yes.
Is there any other standing or ad hoc committee reports?
I'll just report on our operations committee. You should all have gotten it. I think one thing you notice that there's a bunch of projects have been finalized essentially, or they're having closeout meetings and we're getting along. At the last meeting, there was a statement that we had about $21 million worth of projects this year. That I at that point I didn't understand because our budget is for a lot less than that. And apparently what it is it's several of those projects are cumulative over the last several years that were added in there. So we didn't really spend $21 million. It's probably less than maybe half of that.
It's the total budget for projects that are now being completed, and we've had
several
large projects that were multi-year projects. So we're closing out that much under construction.
And that's we've been averaging about $10 million a year on water and sewer over the last 10 years of projects. So that's average. It goes up and down because of, so you get some big lump sums, in 1 year on one.
I imagine, did you get a number on last year, what it was? Because I imagine it was significantly more than 10 million, but not the 20 million.
Yeah, I do have that.
John Teal probably knows it off the top of his head.
Yeah, I had the same.
It was about $10 million a year.
Right.
Over
Now,
10 years.
I get that on the average. I was just thinking with all that we had going on, it was more last year.
Here we go. In 16-17, the current year, it's about $16 million.
Yeah. So
the year before, it was
$13
million. And budgeted for this year, proposed, is something like $14 million. So, which is not enough because we've been putting off a lot of things, a lot of maintenance that's been put off and things that we're going to have to start spending it. I hate to wait out that 10 years and then we get that big bump, and that's I'm going to wonder why.
I agree with you. It's just it's about all we can get done staff-wise.
Maybe we need to hire more staff.
Well, they tried that when I first got to the district in '91. And we found a way to get it all done without that, so I'm not too interested in that. Consultants, yes, pay them so we don't have to pay them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, okay, either way, we get more people on there, but this deferred maintenance issue is starting to come back, and we're seeing it on some of these emergencies that we've been having and some of the other things that are coming up.
Okay.
All right, board member reports. Anybody have anything? As you can see on the agenda, I had us add that line about board involvement in Washington D.C. and other conferences because I wanted to see how everybody on the board kind of felt about this, and there really isn't a way to do it without getting it right here during the board meeting. So I want to know what you guys as a board think is an appropriate amount of people to send, let's say, to something like Washington, D.C. Shannon typically goes. I think it's good to have a staff member to go for continuity if the boards change, and also to have his technical expertise on our system that board representatives don't have. I also think it's probably a good idea to have at least one board member to go. It seems like electeds like electeds, and so that kind of helps there. But I kind of want to know if you guys think that that's enough for two, or if you think it should be open to any or all board members, or what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Having never gone myself, I don't know that I have that much of an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that all five of us would necessarily need to be there.
Well,
Just my feeling, but
let me just give you an idea of what we've been doing. And for many years, it was at least one board member would go back with Dennis before Shannon, and we got a lot of things done. I mean, staff does a lot of the work and gets us lined up, but as Randy said, it's nice to have an elected official there, and then the staff uses us as a prop to and tell us what to say. But
hand up the back.
Yeah. But it's worked out, and we've been very successful, and it's good to have a continuation. Dwayne and I have been back there enough that they know who we are when we walk in the door, and some of the people we've known year to year. I don't know that it's necessary to have more than one go back unless we have something special. But with now that the fact that Aqua and CASA are both there the same week, there's a little bit of overlap, but they have separate meetings, and I think that's good to have somebody, at least one person, representing it.
Well, on this board now, you and Dwayne are the only two that have done this Washington trip. Are both of you interested in doing that this year, or just one of? I mean,
I'm interested in going. I didn't go last year. Dwayne went last year, kind of alternating, and so I kind of thought I was going, and I've been talking to Saperstein and some of the others about what we can do back there. I don't know how much Dwayne wants to go.
Well, it's been highly successful for us in getting money. I'm a little concerned because Saperstein he's involved in putting on the meetings. Does he do Aqua and?
No, just he's the CASA representative.
So while we're back there with him, hoping to work with him, he's got his hands full.
Well, David Reynolds is available, so we've been able to work with him.
But I personally think a 4-person team is best. I like going back either twice a year or going back when we don't have the conference going, because there's so much to cover in the conference. There's so many times I've been in one meeting and wished I could cover another as well. But this is, I swear it's by accident. We were cleaning house, and I got the board policy book, and I thought, well, I'm going to look up what it says. And it says that board members are encouraged and that it's their duty to attend as much conferences and things as they should. So we may want to change it if we change our mind. But I think with board members, there should be at least one experienced and one that's getting the experience each time, so we have an overlap. and I think it's true with staff too. I think, like, for instance, Shannon has done a terrific job. I'd like to see somebody like Shelley go back and start getting into the relay and making friends. It takes a little bit of time. I was so surprised this last time I went back. I would walk through the hall and they remembered me. And maybe it's because I was obnoxious or something, I don't know. They remembered me. So I believe that it's valuable. Does it look good to the public? I don't know, but if we're going to spend this money on these guys, we need to spend time with them and push them, get them to give us good meetings with these electeds in person if we can do it. The cross-training, like I said, I think is valuable. And then there's the multiple focus, as I said. For instance, a lot of times when Jim and I have gone, he said, I'm going to cover these meetings. I'm going to meet with these people on some of our issues that we're ongoing with. And I'd say, okay, then I'm going to go and meet with some of the congressmen and senators and other people like Placer County. It's one of the few times we can spend time with the Placer County representatives and Truckee. I have a hard time getting over to see those guys. Otherwise, they kind of follow on our coattails because we have a reputation. They try to get into our meetings, but we get to talk to them, and we get to make friendships so that when we have something we need their ish on, they're there. So, cross-training, multiple focus, long-term relationships with the staff of these agencies and the electeds is important, and it's a better support of the money we spend to have our people back there watching and working. Does it look good to the public? Maybe not. I don't know.
I think we're talking, those trips usually are what, cost about $5-6 grand, something like that?
Yeah, it's
5,000
Per person?
per person.
yeah.
Well, if we're part of the conference, they're about $600 a piece, and then you've got lodging.
Yeah, lodging
But
and airfare
I don't
and
think
all
it's
that.
5,000, but I think that.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I believe Melanie has done that now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So-
airfare, meals, all that
But
stuff.
So that's what I
but
think
if they're
is
not-
valuable.
If we're going back just to be there at some other time than the conference to take care of things, and I'd suggest that maybe Dwayne go later in the season and go back, when the conferences aren't on, and he'd rather go.
Well,
meet
providing
with
you
some
can
of
get in the door.
He'd get in the door.
Yeah, what they
But,
do.
and those are the types of things that Saperstein and French can set up. I mean, that's what they do, and then
Right.
and they know who we are because we've had a continuing relationship back there, and I don't know that we've ever been turned down, have we, Dwayne?
No, the Thursday, Friday meetings, I think, are as important as anything, where we've done the conferences, we put our effort and interest into meeting with, and like I said, especially our local agencies. Then on Thursday and Fridays, especially Thursdays, Saperstein works on getting us one-on-one conversations with either the top staff or sometimes the electeds themselves. Those are really valuable, and that's where I do my best work. Jim does his best work with all the people he's got a 20-year relationship with. I don't do bad at it. My interest is more in those. So we have to make sure that those guys get us some one-on-one quiet meetings where we can really push our agendas.
Some of those could be done out here too.
Some of them can be done out here. Sometimes they come here. So I'm not opposed to 2 people going. I'm not opposed to 4 if we have something we
Well, yeah,
want.
I think it's a given that Shannon and 1 board member going. So what you're saying is even if 2 board members want to go, that's not a waste of money.
It's not the end of the world, no, because I'll tell you what, we work hard. I remember times when we've had like 20 meetings, up to 20 meetings with these people, and you don't know when it's going to pay off or how it's going to pay off. Most of them aren't even going to be there next year if all this sexual harassment things.
One thing we
Start
did
over
on-
again.
Well, our state senators will be.
But yeah, I hope so.
One of the things that we did, and we haven't done it that much the last few years, was that we would get briefed on a lot of the issues that the different agencies had. And then we would go out and do some lobbying. They'd have groups, there'd be 4 or 5 people would be going around to different offices. And that's where we really got involved in lobbying for California issues and telling the people, look how, if you pass this bill, this is how it's going to affect California. And we got around to quite a few people there on those.
Now, last year, everything was up in the air because none of the appointees were really approved yet. Nobody knew what was going on. There was big squabbles, and it's starting to settle out just a little bit. and so we should be able to start really making some headway. So I'm not against it. And I think one other employee ought to go that's gonna, like I said, somebody like Shelley.
That's another thing that I've always felt that it's important. I mean, I've been very active in Aqua. I did go to some CASA meetings years ago before I just kind of, went to the Aqua only. But I think it's, somebody should be going, if they want to go to Washington and represent an agency, either Aqua or CASA, they should be going to the conferences so that they get a feel of what's happening and the issues that are being discussed at either CASA or Aqua, and then you have a better understanding when you go to Washington, when you get involved with issues back there and you can help.
And because California is, in my opinion, attacking, well, I don't think I'm the only one, they're attacking water agencies like never before, and we have to make sure that we're supporting Aqua and CASA's efforts to keep them from doing that. And we need to explain to our federal people that we need them as much as possible to step in and stop it. Like California is proposing a Waters of California rule because we're getting rid of waters of
waters of the U.S.
So, like for instance, we have millions of dollars interest in our Indian Creek issue, and if I was thinking, okay, great, we can get rid of this waters of the U.S. issue and get Indian Creek off that order. And then California comes along and tries to change it. That's a very expensive thing that we can start working on. So we can find, and we haven't really talked to Saperstein about it, but we need to protect ourselves because just a little puddle can cause huge damage to you financially. Yeah, don't spill your coffee.
Well, yeah, that's maybe not just a little puddle. But the one thing is, I mean, you got most of the legislators are from east of the Mississippi, and they don't understand the issues of California, with our water scarcity and the seasonality of everything back there. They always got rivers flowing year round, and they've got plenty of water, so it's a lot different. And when they make rules, they have to make them for the whole United States. And
well, actually, they don't. They just do.
Well, they do, but I know. But that's why we have to be there to protect our issues.
And it's hard for me to go, but I've been doing this since '91, minus 5 years, and we've made money off of it. We've made friends, and we've had to remake them. We're in a funny situation. We've got a California that's mostly liberal, so we have to have that relationship. And then we've got Washington, D.C. that's now got the people in charge on the other side of the aisle. We have to lobby both sides differently, and that's where we need Saperstein and French.
Chris, you ever wanted to do anything like that?
Possibly, not right now.
However,
Not right yet.
I agree with Dwayne that it's important. I disagree slightly that we need to send more than 2. I think 2 is more than enough. 1 district employee, 1 representative from the board is great. I don't think 3 or 4 is necessary. I think it's actually limited in its benefit. The other thing is we spend a great deal of money on lobbyists that act on our behalf, and that's what we're paying them for. So us being there is important, but I don't think more than 2 of us is going to do us any better than 2 of us. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Shannon.
Just to circle back around and listen to the conversation and making an alternative proposal would be potentially for myself and 1 board member to go back to the CASA Aqua Conference, which is really a kind of whole week of events, and then to say, okay, well, maybe we go back for a 2-day event at another time of the year, which is what Wayne was saying, and that would be an opportunity cheaper in that we're going back for a shorter period of time. We're not confined to the hotel where the conference is, and so we can find farther out potentially some cheaper accommodations that the advocating for, and that could be an opportunity for Shelley to go out and another board member to go out and do a quick hit, visit our delegation, and hit on some topics and kind of get in and get out at a cheaper rate.
Yeah, that's something to consider. All right, so think about that, Dwayne.
I'm okay with that. You know, I have to admit, the conferences, I get value out of them, but it's hard for me to go back there and sit and hear something that I can read, you know, later in a succinct way. I like to get out and meet I just have a different role. So Jim and I played a good two-part role back there. That's all. So I don't know if we would have put it to a vote or not, but I want to make
I don't
sure.
think so. I just kind of wanted to.
I want to make sure board
have this
members have the
discussion.
ability to
Right.
go if they need to go. So I can not go this time and go another time when we can set some.
I think it'd probably be better because then we're showing up twice. You know, they see me, and then a couple months later they see you, and I can imagine there may be some things later in the season that would be good for you to go back. Kind of along this discussion, I got the agenda for the CASA meeting coming up at the end of January, and I'd like to go to that. Like I said, I've been concentrating on Aqua, but I think if I was looking at the agenda, and there's some issues on here that I think are worthwhile to be involved in, and at least we have somebody. Eric did a good job for years representing the district there, and
Yeah, that's why we put on this other conferences. I kind of feel the conferences like the Aqua in California and the CASA, I wouldn't have a problem really if all the board members went, because I think that's, and you're all that want to, let me put it that way, because I think that's kind of stuff you just learn a little bit more about the business and the industry, if you're so inclined. I'm actually planning on going to the CASA like I usually do.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yeah, I've gone every year except for 1 year.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I knew you'd been a couple of times. I thought that was it. But
Well, ever since Eric.
no, I'd encourage all of
Eric
them.
hasn't been gone that long, actually. See, that's the thing. I took over for him immediately. Right.
Okay, well, no, I'd encourage anybody to go, and it's educational, and you get to, feeling for what's happening at the state and federal level, which directly affects us. As well as you can, and then they'll have specific issues like this next one. They've got some on, the emergency type situations that they had during the fires. Some of the things you think about, and we who knows, we could have an emergency up here. We almost had one last winter with, but.
I've got a lot on my plate, but the millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars that we've been able to help the district, either at costs that didn't happen, for instance, when the Forest Service tried to stick us with the well, our relationship with Juan Palma and subsequently Dave Tenney got them to reverse that decision. On the MTBE, we used Barbara Boxer and Diane Feinstein with our personal relationships with their chiefs of staff. It's been very, very valuable to us in terms of getting money, our ability to get money through the Restoration Act and to prevent things that the League Disabling Tahoe and others tried to put in. And most recently, our ability or inability to protect fire funds is on the table, and because of Steve Teixeira and others pulling shenanigans on us and taking those away after we'd worked hard on them. He goes back so often that he's got relationships that we don't. So I can think of a dozen others. When we had a $17 million addition that the Forest Service wanted to put, I think it was Forest Service or TRPA, on our pipeline, and we were able to use our connection.
It was the Forest Service, and
Yeah.
we saved $17 million.
$17 million bucks. So that in relationship to to,
$5,000.
yeah, so I'm able
it.
to defend that.
Dennis had a list of grants and things like that. I've been involved in a whole lot of them, but it totaled about $90 million over the, going back to the rebuilding of the plant, going to secondary and all the other things that we've had in the last 25 years. It's $90 million savings.
Yeah. So
Well, that's the only reason I put it on there, just to have this discussion, and I think we all know where we stand on this and what we're doing. So we'll just kind of keep going along the way we've been going on, and if you guys want to schedule something in DC for later on down the road, that's fine.
All right, do you think it'd be worthwhile for me to go?
It's up to you. Melanie, what'd you do? Did you?
I booked a room reservation for you already at the conference hotel I was talking about. So we're the next two right next to it. So this one is.
And where's it at?
Oh, really? Oh, so it's not even the same hotel then?
Right.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Jim, if you're interested in going to the reservation too, those are usually the first things that sell out.
Yeah, I had her. I thought we were proactive on getting a room. Evidently not.
And I've had a hard time at conferences where there's 2 or 3 really good subjects scheduled at the same time. You go, what do we do? So we divide up as best we can.
Yeah, well, I think if I'm going to go back and represent the district for the CASA portion in Washington, then I'd like to go to this one, and then I can discuss the issues better.
Jeff Lee's also going to go.
Yeah, I knew Jeff was going. I didn't know you were playing.
Okay.
On that front going forward, the AQUA conference is coming May, early May, will be in Sacramento. So maybe an opportunity for other board members, even if you're able to just come down for a day, or if you come down, it'd be great if you're able to come down for the conference. I think one of the things that Jim found was that it was cheaper to book the hotel before the conference was announced. And you get better rates at the conference.
Yeah.
Is this isn't that one where they parade us around through the Capitol down there and lobby?
No, this is the day.
That's what they do in Washington with the.
Well, I did that
nuts.
once with CASA down in Sacramento.
What a waste.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so what I've always done when I go back to Washington is I have Jim go with that group, and I do that to some extent.
Yeah.
And I go individually and try to get individual meetings, sometimes 8, 9, 10, 12 meetings, and those are invaluable. They're hard work. Last time I had a hard time dragging around, but it was worth it.
I got a lot of exposure during the MTBE wars, and I was back there. I was the chairman of the AQUA MTBE committee, and so I was going back. I even testified before Congress at one point on what the oil industry was doing.
I've testified 4 times. One time I had Governor, was it Gibbons, Senator Feinstein, Harry Reid, and I think, I'm trying to remember who else, Doolittle, I think, and me. And so we conferenced together and everything like that. So we built up relationships where you're sitting sort of as equals on a panel. It really helps. They know you then.
Okay, I think we can move on this one. Anything going on with the El Dorado County Water
No,
Agency?
we didn't have a meeting this time.
Okay. January 10th is the next meeting. So,
Okay, you're going to give us a report on what happened to that meeting?
Yeah, the 9 o'clock
immediately
meeting.
followed our
Right.
ad hoc committee meeting.
Interestingly enough, a PCE was a prime topic of conversation. That's where we found out, heard directly from Brian Gray, the staff member at Lahontan, that he had prepared the staff recommendation to the senior executives at Lahontan as to what to do and what to order the PRP to do in terms of their work plan. The other important thing that you need to be aware of is part of the, and then we talked about the grant, and I think we've talked about the fact that the state board has awarded the district and its partners in this groundwater agency, a study for looking at how to contain the plume and how to better define the plume. They've expanded the scope, so we talked about that project. Part of that project is a public outreach component. So this morning we got together with Jennifer and Shelley, and talked about that effort, laying out a schedule for it that would also include things like at least 3 public meetings, because again, the state board is usually very pro getting the public involved as possible. And so we're probably envisioning a public meeting at the Tahoe Valley Elementary School, probably a second meeting in front of the city council, but different from the one where Patty Cormigan is coming to explain to the council what the schedule is, but more of a public outreach, and have the staff there. And again, you look at it, getting the public involved, we think, is the way to put pressure on Lahan. But it's as I said, it's part of, it's a requirement of the grant. So we were talking about that. So that will be, and we'll be doing, letters. We'll be doing outreach. We'll be doing, fact sheets and stuff. We'll be doing, posting information on the website. So all these things in order to reach out and explain to the public what we're trying to do to protect their water. And obviously the message is, it's been going for a while, but that they can be confident in the water they're drinking is meeting drinking standards. So we'll let you know as those things approach in terms of the dates for these meetings if you're interested in going. We also talked about we had a grant from the El Dorado County Water Agency to conduct a private well survey, and we had pretty good success in getting a pretty high percentage of our private well owners willing to engage with us, provide us information on the status of their wells, what they use them for, whether they were still in service or not. And there's approximately about 600 out there in our service area, so we're not just talking about a handful. So that was reported on. Were you to be anything else that you thought was very significant that we should share with the board in terms of the SAG meeting? Oh, okay. We'll talk about that.
We saw that. That was kind of interesting.
Have you got a summary on that, the well survey?
Yes, we do. On the well survey, yes, there was a report done. We'll certainly, if you're interested, we can certainly share that with you. Because we had actually hired a couple of people to go out and we actually do face-to-face interviews. We also give people the opportunity to fill out the survey online or over the phone. But it was very successful, and we didn't get too many door slams in the face of folks.
I don't know if you want to talk about the concentrations they're finding over in the rock water. That's possible.
Yeah. Well, part of the meeting was sharing. Spent a lot of time sharing of the latest monitoring information from all the monitoring wells in that South Y area, and there's pretty high concentrations of PCE in the old rock water well. The rock water well, that property had its own well.
Where's that?
And
Is that?
That we were at the rock water restaurant.
Oh,
Sunny's. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's now Sunny's.
That's what I thought.
And they have like cabins in the back.
Right. There were such high concentrations there. They had to basically discontinue use of that well. They went on to the Lucan system, so increased the demand. So that's more water coming through the intertie from our system. Because Lucan's obviously their well number one doesn't. That's their only well that's left. Doesn't provide their full capacity. But anyway, so it was the data was shared. The high concentration there, when you look at the plume, the shape of the plume, the depth of the plume, it kind of leads one to believe that there's probably another source of the PC contamination in that regional plume other than the Lake Tahoe Laundry Works. They think it's probably up along, maybe on the west side of Highway 89, around that 7-Eleven station. There has been some industrial facilities, behind the 7-Eleven, that building. There's a machine shop in there now. There's been other things up there that could potentially, because of their past use, be a source of the PC contamination. So that would obviously be wanting to be investigated in the future. And that has been one of the drumbeats of the Lake Tahoe Laundry Works current owners and attorneys and hydrogeologists, as they've always claimed that there's other sources out there contributing to the regional plume. So, they have the opportunity of spending their own money exploring that as well. But that's been one of their complaints to Lahontan, is that Lahontan isn't pursuing potential other sources as they should be.
Just wanted to say, a little bit of a caveat on that. It is possible that the Lake Tahoe Laundry Works is still the only source, and that maybe that plume got split, and that there's some geologic reasons for this higher concentration to have gone that way. It's certainly not clear at this point what the cause is, whether it is this other source or whether, which honestly, most likely that kind of makes sense to me. But it certainly could be still from that same Tahoe Laundry Works source. There's no smoking gun, there's no definitive answer to the problem. It's certainly possible.
So it certainly takes more investigation, site investigation, and I wouldn't put the State Water Board past adding some additional work to our grant project, which they've expanded the scope of already, to have us punch some more holes and see if a connection can be drawn from the potential site or the suspect site to those higher concentrations in the old Rockwater well.
Has anybody ever tested over around the industrial area back in there to see if, with all those industrial buildings, is there any source anywhere near?
Which side of Lake Tahoe Boulevard are you talking about?
Like going out past the high school on the left.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There has been.
In the past, there's been all kinds of things.
Yes.
Paint shops,
Yes.
body shops, mechanics, diesel.
That is one of the defenses that the Lake Tahoe Laundry Works has brought up, is there have been at least certainly low-level concentrations of PC discovered around the asphalt plant, the industrial plant, the industrial area, that are based upon the groundwater direction towards the lake, are upstream of the Lake Tahoe Laundry Works. And so their drumbeat, part of their defense is that, well, we think it's coming from upstream, not our site.
I think all the sampling that I've seen up gradient from Lake Tahoe Laundry Works has been pretty minor, and
that's what
they have not been able to make their case that there's any significant contamination up gradient.
I know the owner of the Scotty's property was real worried, and the word to him was that they weren't the source of it. But there's been so many buildings there for so long, people don't even remember who was there. Runnels has been there forever, all
There was a dry cleaner at the Y for a very long time.
There certainly was, always, yeah.
There were 3 automobile agencies there for a long time too. Ford,
Yeah.
the Chevy, and the Volkswagen.
Yeah, so it's really hard to say, and they're spending so much time trying to figure out where it came from instead of just get going and fix it.
But when this first surfaced back in the late 70s or early 80s, some of the people at Lahontan that I knew thought that it was coming from the automobile agencies. I mean, but they ignored it. It was like with the MTBE issue, they ignored it, and
in the 90s, when it became even more obvious that there was a problem, who was the first people that the Lahontan turned and chased after? It was us. Because down in Lodi, there had been a case where there had been contamination, and there the PC had actually followed had gotten into the sewer, the sanitary sewer system, and then further downstream had leaked out of the sewer system, and so they blamed the public agency who was the owner of the sanitary sewer system for spreading the plume, and asked them to clean up the PC, even though it didn't originate with that district's operation.
I said it before, but it was really a scary incident. We dodged a bullet. Harold Singer came to us and asked if they could please use our sewer manholes as ways to test for the chemical. And we were just about ready to say yes, and somebody on the board asked, well, okay, now if we use that, is there any danger to us? He says, oh yes, we could then declare that you were carrying this and that you would become responsible. And he darn near pulled it off. we would have really been in a bad shape. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, one of the things we did do at the time, though, was we did some horizontal drilling to test whether there was contamination beneath our
Correct.
sewer line as it went downstream, and we didn't find anything. So we kind of, they accepted that information as kind of evidence that our sanitary sewer system wasn't spreading the contamination.
And the strict liability law is just crazy. I mean, somebody could be there and end up having to pay for something that was legal to have dumped at the time, and now it's not. And so they're going back and recreating a law. Oh, it's nuts. So those people fight it like crazy. So, okay.
Okay. Is that pretty much it, Richard?
Yeah, that's it from my report.
So
We're
Shannon,
gonna watch the.
how long's your movie?
8 minutes.
Okay.
So when Jim and I were at this last Aqua conference, they did this video as one of the, as kind of an opening ceremonies thing, and it really, Jim pointed out that it really encapsulated several of the issues that they're facing, and I think there's some things in here that will be interesting for you and for us, some things that are not so interesting, but it does cover where Aqua's going in the coming year and some of the battles that they're fighting on our behalf and on behalf of the other water agencies in the state. And so I thought it gave some really good overview of that, so that you don't have to listen to me talk for 20 minutes. We can watch them for 8 minutes.
California Water Strong isn't just our conference theme, it's our common cause, working together to secure California's future. No challenge is too great. Welcome to the 2017 Aqua Fall Conference and Exhibition in Anaheim, the premier event for water professionals to strengthen our community and learn about the most pressing issues we face. This year, we've faced unparalleled challenges and achieved impressive results, thanks in no small part to unprecedented teamwork between Aqua and its member agencies. Together, we're keeping California Water strong. Here's a look at Aqua's top-level priorities and the progress made on these initiatives during this incredible year. The Aqua Board of Directors, representing you, our members, set these priorities, and Aqua staff worked in partnership with you to build our successes.
I'm really just shocked. I'm surprised. They want to put taxes on everything. It seems like everything.
Collaboration was crucial in holding off California's first ever tax on drinking water. A high-profile, Aqua-led advocacy and outreach effort with engagement from hundreds of local agencies culminated in SB 623 becoming a 2-year bill. Next legislative session, Aqua will advance appropriate funding solutions for safe drinking water in California's disadvantaged communities. Embracing its role as the leading voice for advancing comprehensive solutions in the Bay Delta and elsewhere in the state, Aqua developed a policy statement urging the State Water Board to reconsider its unimpaired flows approach for Bay Delta water quality objectives. Aqua supported the governor's call for the State Water Board to seek less costly and more collaborative alternatives. In the end, nearly 150 Aqua members voiced support for the Aqua policy of functional flows and co-equal goals. On the heels of meeting the challenges of historic drought, Aqua remains focused on long-term conservation policy. The legislature began the year with 8 bills. Throughout the complicated process, Aqua and its members came together in a focused outreach and advocacy effort to ensure a sound policy approach. Ultimately, 2 bills were held in the legislature, a significant victory ensuring continued water community input next session. Increasing the state's water storage capacity has been an Aqua priority dating back more than a decade. With member support, we embarked on first-ever research examining how integrating water storage projects could improve system-wide flexibility and effectiveness. Meanwhile, 11 surface and groundwater storage projects located throughout California are competing for Prop 1 storage dollars. Next year, the California Water Commission is expected to allocate $2.7 billion to selected projects, adding millions of acre-feet of new storage capacity, a success story that would not have been possible without Aqua leadership. Increased groundwater replenishment is critical to protecting local economies as we implement SGMA in California. This issue is especially important to Aqua's agricultural members. A task force was formed to create an action plan to significantly increase the availability of wet period replenishment water and develop broad-based political support to implement the plan. From mountain peaks to the Pacific, Aqua is pushing for better management of California's watersheds and forests. In a year marred by destructive wildfires, Aqua joined forces with a broad coalition of Western water suppliers on federal legislation to increase the pace and scale of programs aimed at protecting water supplies and preventing catastrophic wildfires. Aqua is focused on reaching common ground on water rates policy, as staff works with Senator Robert Hertzberg to craft SCA 4, a constitutional amendment for greater flexibility in establishing water rates, which continues in 2018. Aqua is also actively engaged on implementation of AB 401, which requires a plan for low-income water rate assistance. From northern to southern California and everywhere in between, in 2016 and 2017, Aqua President Kathy Teagues hit the road to engage with Aqua members face-to-face. Over the last 2 years, the Meet the President initiative reached hundreds of members, building a more connected water community. With a wave of retirements underway, connecting with the next generation of water professionals is critical. Aqua's Next Gen initiative is getting the word out. This year's first ever Water Professionals Appreciation Week increased exposure about careers in water. You may have noticed Aqua has a new look for its website. In the second year of a 2-year marketing, communications, and outreach plan, a comprehensive overhaul of Aqua's website was completed, featuring an all-new mobile-friendly platform and more members-only content. We're also moving quickly to build a long-range plan to ensure Aqua's financial sustainability, and we've just completed a plan to improve association benefits and offer new member services. The plan will increase sources of non-dues revenue, thereby keeping member dues down. The Ag Initiative has made Aqua leaders more aware of the enormous challenges facing our Ag members and has increased Ag involvement in Aqua. We have much in store for the next several days, including a member vote on the creation of Aqua's 13th Standing Committee, the Agricultural Committee. It's the culmination of the 2-year agricultural initiative in which Aqua sought to engage and better support its agricultural members. Ahead this week, in moments, a glimpse at Beyond the Brink, a new documentary exploring society's future in a world where water, food, and natural resources teeter on the edge of sustainability. Later today, new DWR Director Grant Davis on his first 100 days at the helm in the path he's setting at DWR. We will honor our own, such as bestowing longtime Aqua board member Rob Roscoe with the Aqua Emissary Award and recognizing the finalists and winner of the annual Huell-Hauser Best in Blue Award for stellar communications and outreach programs. Our agenda is jam-packed with more than 80 meeting and program sessions featuring diverse statewide perspectives and need-to-know info on local, statewide, and federal issues. Get the latest on California Water Fix in the Wednesday Statewide Issue Forum. Can we close the deal on Water Fix? Don't miss our Statewide Issue Forum Wednesday afternoon, Finding the Path Forward for Renewed Health of California Headwaters. At the Thursday luncheon, we will listen to a keynote address by Austin Ewell, Deputy Assistant Director for Water and Science at the U.S. Department of the Interior. Friday morning, Devastation and Destruction, a story of response and resiliency, how California's water agencies mobilized to provide critical water supplies and services as wildfires tore through the state. We are also offering water professionals the opportunity to earn up to 6 CLE credits. Don't miss multiple networking events to connect with your colleagues, and visit the exhibit hall to meet a variety of talented professionals who serve our industry. 2017 has been a big year. Through the power of partnership, Aqua and its members are building sustainable, comprehensive water solutions, ensuring we remain California water strong.
Any questions about any of those?
We went by fast, but I noticed on one of the support letters, I spotted our logo on the lower right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were particularly engaged. SB 623 the water conservation, and AB 401, 623 and AB 401. Those are really the water tax issues. That's stuff that we're obviously very much tracking and involved in with them.
I was interested in two things. One is the constitutional amendment to open up the ability to charge more for water, and the other was having a 13th committee for
Ag.
ag. Ag is very strong already. I was just surprised that they needed.
It started out as an agricultural organization. That's
correct. I don't know
back
why they
100
need
years
that.
ago, and then it gradually started taking in the municipal water system. So it's kind of ironic that they've gone back now to have a committee just for agriculture.
So to address a couple of those issues, on the ag side, it is a big piece of this is about water users coming together and fighting common battles, particularly around the water conservation front. Both us as municipal agencies and urban water suppliers and the ag community all felt under threat from the water board and the governor on what was happening with water conservation and what they were trying to force. And so that brought those two groups together, and what's happening with the Delta, et cetera. That's where some of that coalition building started to happen, and they discovered that we do have a lot of common ground, and we're more effective fighting these battles together than we are when we're separate. On the what was the other part of your question, Dwayne? You had two issues.
The
constitutional amendment. What that's about is really about stormwater. Right now, we use Prop 218 for sewer and potable water, and as an agency, that Prop 218 is our kind of governing constitutional section on rates. Stormwater doesn't fall under that. In order to raise funds for stormwater management programs, they have to meet the 2/3 vote requirement to do a tax to raise funds for dealing with stormwater. And so what they're trying to do is to have a constitutional amendment which will allow stormwater to be considered the same as surface water, as potable water or recycled water or sewer. So that's not a big issue for us as an agency, which is one reason I haven't brought that before you previously. But there are certainly agencies within Aqua that are responsible for stormwater as well. And so that's why it's a big issue for them. And it's also some coalition building with counties and cities that have a big stormwater responsibility to get that addressed. There's some other pieces to that. There's some disadvantage. There's funding for disadvantaged communities, which is getting kind of rolled into or separated out into that SB 623 effort. And so Aqua was very involved in that, and they've gotten it really more focused on a constitutional amendment for stormwater, and that SB 623 water tax for disadvantaged infrastructure for disadvantaged communities got separated. So they've been part of that conversation since the beginning with the legislators and making sure that our interests are being represented with that topic.
I just thought that this would be it's short and quick, and gives you kind of an overall view of what Aqua's doing, and both California and there's staff here, about 30 people down in Sacramento, and the office that's in Washington, D.C., 3 people there. So they're really involved on all levels. I don't know if you really know how much Shannon's involved, but right there at the beginning, there was a picture of about 30 people. That was the governing board. Shannon's in that picture.
No wonder they flipped by it quick.
That's exactly right. Let's just keep that on going. I thought about it. I pointed myself out when I came up a couple of times. Yeah, that's right. So that would probably not be a good thing. There are issues that we're not engaging on, and so I think sometimes that's just as important as the issues we are engaging on. We're not involved in any of that Bay Delta stuff.
Yeah.
We stick clear of it. We haven't come to you to ask for opinions. We've just said that doesn't concern us. We drained into that.
We appreciate that. I think we only want to
other than
go with what affects us.
Because of the Bay Delta and trying to protect it, the state board basically on the clean water side gave all of their loan money to the Sacramento Regional Plan to upgrade to go to tertiary treatment. So that's why we had to go out and do the private loan on our standby generator, because they didn't have any money to loan us.
That happened.
So it does impact us, but.
That happened.
But our involvement wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, right.
So it doesn't really matter.
That happened when we were in Washington too. Which agency was it? Got $1 billion loan?
That's SAC Regional.
Yeah,
That's
it took all the money.
Yeah,
I think they're up to $2 billion now.
But what does happen is
Billion
when the
plus.
Bay Area, usually when the Bay Area gets some sort of dispensation on an item, we've been successful about watching what they're doing and copying it here, so that we can avoid certain pitfalls, because they write a lot of the language. Their attorneys and whatever spend a lot of time on it, and we come right behind them.
Yeah, we're not involved in language writing because I'm not a lawyer. I just try to make sure that our 2 cents gets represented in our little mountain community. Our issues get represented as they're drafting those things, so that we get the comments in as a piece of legislation or a response to a piece of legislation is getting drafted. In my mind, that's the most effective time to get our information on the table and our issues addressed, rather than trying to fight something after the fact.
We're somewhat insulated, but the area of origin is a huge issue, and there's always an attack on that, because the way water laws were written, whoever got it first is the big boss, and now they sold a lot of it away because they had plenty of it in the old days, and now people are trying to take it.
And we certainly support Placer County, PCWA, EID, mountain counties, and others in their efforts to protect their water rights and their areas of origin rights. We continue to push, as it indicated on there, the headwaters issues. We continue to push that and make sure that continues to be a priority for Aqua, and that doesn't slip slip off the radar just because we're out of a drought.
We are indirectly affected by the Delta issues and the other issues in California, because we're part of El Dorado County, which is affected by the Delta, and El Dorado County is part of the state, so it affects us too, but indirectly. So
yeah, we just don't. I don't take as active a role. Certainly pay attention to them,
well,
but we
do
don't.
through El Dorado County Water Agency.
Right. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Anybody else have anything? Gary?
Yeah, just one quick thing, and this is actually, you'll appreciate it's good news. The funding for the emergency generator project closed yesterday, and so the funds were dispersed. Primary funds were dispersed to the district. The closing costs were dispersed to Bank of New York for payment, and then the district will hold those funds until they need to pay off projects as you move forward.
Yeah, the bad news is it costs $1.6 million more than what our engineer's estimate was. So.
We'll bring that to the next board meeting and have a much more discussion about
Right.
the project and the funding of the project.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that looks like you guys can see past the future meeting. I guess we'll see most of you next year. Meeting adjourned.